if you're not taking ownership, how are you any different from anybody else who abuses? The victim mentality is abuse to your relationships in and of itself, because you place all of the blame and all of the onus on another person so that they have to carry everything that transpires. And this is how we end up perpetuating the cycle and attracting people into our lives who want to feast on our pain or revel in it. Because we then say these things outward. First of all, we have a certain energy, a certain vibration that attracts certain people to us. And then we hope to elicit some sort of sympathy and healing in these relationships, where we end up exposing all of these soft and tender parts inside of ourselves, where people are then able to use this as fodder, as ammunition, as the building blocks for how they can use that against us in later interactions. Because we end up wanting and needing something from people who are not qualified to give it to us, who are not in a space, who have not consented to give that to us. However, we need this and we want this. We want to supplant the need for actual therapy, for actually working on our stuff with a licensed professional. We supplant that with going on our first dates, opening up our wounds to these people, finding a person and a person having a slight amount of interest in us and saying, oh, now, well, this is the relationship that I can find healing in. And you elect this person to be your non-qualified, unpaid, and non-consenting therapist. We're doing this on these dates. We're doing this inside of our relationships. We're doing this inside of our friendships, where we are enacting people who may not be qualified. Instead of really looking for a person who is qualified, we're enacting people who may not have the capacity. And then we ourselves are becoming re-traumatized over and over again when we're realizing that these people just aren't qualified. And not only are we re-traumatized by, quote unquote, re-traumatized by them, but we're really re-traumatized by ourselves over and over again by not doing what it is that we need to do for ourselves in the way that's going to be most and best helpful to ourselves. The most helpful thing to do is to really sit down, roll up your sleeves, and work on your issues. To really dig down deep and find that healing, that real healing inside of you, no matter what it takes. Because if you are reverberating in that toxic space, you will not attract healthiness to you. When I was displaced, I attracted men who wanted to take care of me, who saw the situation that I was in, and they wanted to, quote unquote, be there for me. And I resisted the temptation, because I knew the energy that I was in, that I was going to attract a similar energy, a complementary energy to that. And if I was not in a healthy space, if I was not resonating high, if I was not reverberating at a high energy, what was I going to attract? Was I going to attract then wolves? Was I going to attract sharks like blood in the water? Was I going to attract people who want to feast on my pain, perpetuate it, or jump right into it and expand it? Would I attract a person who is used to a broken bird so that they come in as savior with their cape? Like, I'm going to help this broken bird with her broken wings. But what happens when that bird's wings get strong and begin to fly? What happens with the person who was attracted to a person in their brokenness? What happens when you are no longer broken? What happens when you're able to stand on your own 2 feet? But your energy attracted a person who liked a person who was dilapidated, who was broken down, a person who couldn't stand on their feet. That is their pattern. Their pattern is to find the broken people, and you're that broken person. What is their impetus? What is their inspiration for assisting you to become non-broken when they love you broken just the way that you are? And then it perpetuates, so that they keep doing all of these different things just to keep you just a little bit fractured, just a little bit fragmented, just a little bit needy and helpless, so that they could be the ones or so that they could be the ones to hurt. Who knows? Who knows? But you have to really look inside of yourself and see whether or not you're attracting something that you want to attract from a space that you want to attract it. And so this is what I'm saying. Like energy attracts like energy. How many of us know people who are broken birds, who are victims and in a victim energy? And then you always hear about all of these people who have done them wrong, all of these people who have feasted on them and took advantage of poor them. And then when all was said and done and the relationship was over, you were named as the assailant. It was you now. You. Now you're the one being told in future stories about the big bad wolf, about the person who did all this. This is why I'm saying you could be the toxic one in your relationship and not know it. Because if all of your stories has somebody else as the bad guy, all of your stories has how somebody else did you wrong, I implore you to really truly look at yourself and see how you participated in things getting there. Whether you participated on this plane or whether you participated before you even came into this life. Whether you're participating on the ethereal plane and really hoping to be able to get yourself a certain set of lessons in this lifetime. How? What would your life look like if you took responsibility? What would this young lady, what would her life look like if she took responsibility for the fact that she called in on a broadcast and decided that she wanted to get what she wanted to get from the broadcast, not calling in? How many calls have I done where we've talked about suicide, where we've talked about, damn, I said this word. How many calls have we done where we've talked about not wanting to be here on this earth anymore, where we've talked about not wanting to give birth to certain children at certain times of our lives, where we've talked about this, I'm sorry, but there's certain words I can't say inside of the YouTube video. So how many times have we created a space to be able to have people call in and be able to have us hold space for them? How many times have we done that? But instead, this person decided that the moment that they were going to call in was when we were doing a completely different lesson. And then take that. Listen, we spent half an hour on the phone with this person in a 2-hour broadcast. That's 25%. That's 25% of our entire broadcast was spent on one person. And when all was said and done, she turned around and turned me into the bad guy because I was not willing to be like, poor you. Oh, poor doodle baby. Poor ting ting. Because I wasn't willing to do that. And I have to ask myself, and I want you to ask yourself as well, before a person comes to you to open up to receive this sort of empathy or sympathy or pity from you, how many other places have they gone before you where they knew that they could receive that pity? We know where we can go for pity. We know where we can go for wanting a person to just revel around in the space that we're at. But it's like you jump over these people, you jump over the other people to come to another person to then attempt to elicit, to try to use your pain to elicit something from this person. And if this person is not giving it to you, then what do? You know where you can find that. And if you don't know where you can find an open voice, an open person to be able to listen and let you wallow when you want, there are support groups. There are support groups on Facebook. There are support groups on meetup.com. There are suicide prevention hotline numbers. There are a tremendous amount of resources where you can go if all you want to do is vent. There are therapists. However, if you want to take action, right? You know where you can go when you want to take action. But we have to ask ourselves, what is the motivating factor for wanting to stay in a particular space? My channel is best suited for people who are already doing the work, who realize that there's work that needs to be done, who are already taking the steps to do it. That's who my channel is best suited for. People who are sad and stuck. Sadness is a stuck emotion where you stay in that energy. When you're sad, you stay there. What is it that you're going to do to move out of sadness? Anger is a more proactive emotion because anger is like something is wrong. I'm going to do something. Anger is more proactive than sadness because sadness, you draw within, you become stagnant and you become still and you become stuck. And when you're in that sad energy and you attract other sad people, you all stay stuck together. Somebody has to take the feeling, the movement, the momentum to move out of that energy. My channel is best suited for people who are ready and willing to move. This is why I wrote this book. Oh, it's too bright, you can't see. This is why I wrote this book, the Book of Affirmation Self-Love. It's an affirmations book which is filled with affirmations that I used to help move me out of my displacement. I could have still been displaced right now. Life does not owe you anything. It's like you as spirit, you as being, you as goddess or king incarnate. You owe it to yourself to do what you need to do for your life. Stop putting the responsibility for your life and your change on other people. I wrote this book for people who were ready. Each page is a meditation in and of itself. I wrote this book for people who were ready to create the change, to do even a small thing, like rewriting the affirmations each night. That's all you have to do. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I assist people in creating shifts. I wrote that book for people who were ready to create a shift in their lives. You have to do the work. We live in a physical world that requires physical action. And if you are in a space where you feel stagnant and you feel stuck, how long are you going to stay stuck? How long are you going to stay stagnant? Something has to change. Something has to shift. In order to get something different, you have to do something different. And one of the first beginning steps is really taking ownership, not blame. Ownership, owning. This is my life. This is my creation. If even I were born into circumstances, on some level, me as a soul call forward for the circumstances into which I was born. And then begin to ask yourself why. Why did I call forward for this? What is the lesson here? What are the patterns that I've seen in my life? And how do I shift out of that? But you have to be ready for it. Because I can imagine that where this young lady is, that when she sees this video, this is why I'm apprehensive about making this video. Because people who are in a certain space, right, when their energy is a little downtrodden, they often like to feast on the energy of people who have juicy, vibrant energy. They like to feast on it. They like to engage in a sort of tango with this person so that they can be in some sort of way connected to this person so that they can feed off of that higher vibration. But what ends up happening is if you are toxic and you come into an environment where that toxicity does not live, your toxicity begins to bleed over onto other people. As I stated, I believe that at the base of all abuse is victim mentality. It's like you think your mother, your boyfriends, or whomever who you say are narcissistic, you think that they acknowledge that they are abusing other people? No, they don't see it that way. They themselves feel abused. They themselves feel like victims. They themselves are not taking ownership of how they got to where it is that they are. How does that differ from you? If you're not taking ownership, how are you any different from anybody else who abuses? How? Because when you enter into these relationships, I'm going to say that the victim mentality is abuse to your relationships in and of itself. Because you place all of the blame and all of the onus on another person so that they have to carry everything that transpired in that relationship while you remain pristine and faultless. I have no fault. I have no fault, just like that. The scapegoat, the runaway train that you hear. I have no fault. My hands are clean. Your hands are dirty. I'm the victim. I'm the victim and you are the assailant. Like that young lady out of all, not Not grateful for the half an hour that we spent dedicating to her. Not grateful for that. Not grateful for me spending my energy and my time with her on that broadcast. Not grateful for that. Not grateful for the people who expressed all of the helpful words, but spending most of the focus on the people that she considered to have dragged her. Not taking ownership for how she participated in that conversation going awry. How she participated in a certain set of actions that also, like a tango, helped us get to where it is that we ended up getting. And when I reviewed that broadcast, I stand by everything that I said. I would say this: the only thing that I would do different is by the time that she started telling that story about that man, instead of telling her, listen, I don't want to hear this, what I could have done is just said, thank you so much for calling in, and then got off the phone. Simple as that. Simple as that. Opposing energies cannot exist in the same space at the same time in tandem. They will repel one another. They will repel one another. But how do we know which is, because you know what? Because like I said, there were people in the comments that were on either side of the aisle. How do we know who is the person who is the assailant or the aggressor? How do we know who is that person? Especially when wounded people are going to see things through wounded eyes. So if either party is wounded, how do we know which is the party? Like I said, take a look inside of your relationships. Take a look at your life. How is your life going? Are things manifesting in the way that you want them to manifest in your life? Are you engaged in healthy, functional relationships with people who honor you? Are you responsible for how your relationships turn out, or is it always somebody else who's responsible? Have you gotten therapy? How much therapy have you gotten? Have you healed those wounds from the past? I know that I can say that in the interaction that I had with that young lady, I know that me, myself, I know that I have vibrant, fulfilling relationships around me. I know that my life is manifesting in a way that I love and want for it to manifest. I know that I have had an extensive amount of therapy in the past. I know what it is that I have done. I know what it is that my life looks like. And there are some things that I still want to continue to manifest and live bigger and brighter. So for all of us, when we look inside of our own lives, if we know that we are in a toxic space, please understand that you are reverberating out toxicity around you, and you may not be able to see. In the same way that your ex or your mother or your father may not be able to see how they are the assailant, because to them, they are the victim. Oh, I didn't want to get pregnant. Look at what your father did to me. Oh, your father left me. Look at what you've done. It's your fault. Everybody else's fault. This is why I say abuse begins with the victim mentality. Somebody just doesn't get up and begin to hit and abuse another person because they feel that they're the assailant. They're the big bad wolf. No, they turn you into the big bad wolf, and they lash out at you because they truly feel in their spirit, in their being, in their warped, toxic, ridden mentality that there's something that you're doing and you must be punished for it because of something that you've done, rather than them taking ownership. So I ask, if you are in victim mode and victim mentality, how are you any different than the other people who victimized you or who you feel victimized you? How are you different? How are you different? This is how it begins. And then the next thing you know, you're lashing out at people who are attempting to help you. You're lashing out at people who are attempting to help you see things in a different way. You're lashing out at people who are telling you that there's another way. And you're gravitating towards the people who are like, I understand, yes. Or I like you like this. You're gravitating towards those people instead of the people who are attempting to get you to level up. The people who are attempting to get you to level up into healthiness. I mean, how many of us have had friends where when all was said and done, at the end of the day, you were the bad guy now? How many of us? But do those friends realize that they are the ones that are going from relationship to relationship, toxic, after toxic interaction, funking up the place with their energy, not realizing it's you. It's you. This is what you are doing. This is what you are creating. It's you. So if you look around and you don't have healthy relationships around you, take a look at yourself and figure out what you can do differently. And on that note, we've talked for a really long time, so I'm going to let you all get out of the video. I love you all very, very much. Go out there and love one another. But most importantly, what? Most importantly, that's right. Love yourself. Love yourself. And part of loving yourself is really diving in real deep and doing the work. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. And it requires some vulnerability. It requires some responsibility. And it requires some realizing that things can be done in a different way. That they don't have to be done in the ways that they were done before. And it also requires realizing that if you were a cucumber steeped in brine, that there are some parts of you that are pickle. There's some parts of you that are pickle. And in order for you to reverse that, you are going to have to get in some healthy spring water, some revitalizing, to dilute, to uncover, to wash away that programming that exists there before. And on that note, Tonya TKO, and I am out. Let's get a hug. Thank you for coming out to this video. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the video. Thank you for watching the video, thumbing up. Thank you for participating in this channel with me. And thank you for listening with an open heart. And if there's some parts of this that you find triggering, I feel you. I feel you. However, look real deep. Look real deep, because if there were nothing in there that you didn't feel were true, you wouldn't be triggered. Let's hug. Let's hug. Ah, yes, 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 yes. All right. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Because like I said, dust and moisture cannot exist in the same place at the same time. Not saying that she's dusty, but I can't think of something else. Who is the, how do we know who is the person who is the, how do we put this? Let's see. Forgive me, but like energy, so I'll change the statement.